4, 3, 2, 1. We are all here shooting this shit with our hosts, DJ Duss and Bamboo Bam. Let's go.
Yo, oh Bam, look at this already.
I know.
Look at this. How's it going, man? I'm your host, DJ Duss, and I'm with my co-host, Bamboo. What's up, Bam?
Yeah, what's happening, bro? What's good? What's going on?
Oh, man, we got, we don't usually do one in the afternoon, but,
Nope.
It's nice to have this, We have a special guest coming on. He's a comedian, Let's get him on the show. It's 2 o'clock. It's, episode 106. It's gonna be there we go. We got E-Rock. This is early for E-Rock. This is E-Rock from Vancouver.
Word.
All the way in the West Coast. How you been? Yeah, it's been a while for sure, buddy. Hope things are doing well. I know he's going through some rehab on his knee. Wish him all the best. Let's get our special guest on here. He's a comedian. It's Shaun Eli. What's going on, Shaun? How are things, buddy?
Sean.
Things are good, and hello, Vancouver.
Yeah, no. He's a good friend of ours. We actually met him through this whole rap battle thing that we were hosting, not hosting, we're a part of. We were interviewing some of the winners, and he's been a big friend of the shows, and that's how we got hooked up. So it's nice. It's nice to see him back because I know he's been rehabbing his knee. So all the best to E-Rock, man. So
one of my favorite comedians is from Vancouver, but
who's
of course I'm Ophira Eisenberg, and I'm American, so we captured her, and she lives here now. So
isn't that what you guys end up doing to us anyways? Just capturing all the Canadians with talent.
Yeah.
It's the way to do it. It's the way to do it.
You want to make it, you come to New York. You want to get famous and not be as good, you go to LA.
It's true. Yeah, and if you want to make some money, well, you got to go down south for sure. Here taxes are a little bit high over here, and obviously our Canadian dollar ain't worth shit. So, anyways, so Shaun, let's get right into it, man. Where were you born and raised?
I was born, unfortunately, in Queens, New York, same place our former president was born and raised.
Ain't nothing wrong with Queens. Which part of Queens?
Bayside. Where are you from?
I'm from East Flatbush. I'm from New York myself. You know what I mean? So don't worry about it. We good, baby. You know what I mean?
My parents are from Brooklyn, but
they
escaped as adults and moved to Manhattan.
Oh, okay. I still got family out before I rock away. You know what I mean? So we good. We still good. We good. Queens is good. Yeah. A lot of great rappers from Queens. Yeah. So, growing up. So who was some of your comedian influences?
Probably Robert Klein, I would say, his influence, and unfortunately, Bill Cosby.
Mm-hmm.
Only a comedic influence, not a crime influence.
It always, I know, because there's always certain things that you're just like, damn, man, that kind of ruined some of my. You know what I mean? I get that. Because what do you mean?
You got to give him credit for what he did.
I get it.
He's a comedian. He's good. Give him his credit, but you also got to say he fucked up. You know what I'm saying? You got to, you got to say it. He fucked up too. So
well, Woody Allen too. I would say Woody Allen did stand up a while. It was very funny. And just so we're clear, I don't have a daughter.
But see, Shaun, as a DJ at weddings, I would play R. Kelly, and I would have women getting mad at me. Turn that shit off. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, you know what I mean? So at one point I was like, the Michael Jackson thing came out. Do I play that? You know what I mean? I was restricted on what I do at a wedding without trying to offend somebody. So, but you saying that he's a comedic influence, you're right, because what he did is on stage or on in his on his show, the Cosby Show is brilliant. But then
but that was also before he got caught, so nobody knew that he was
a fucked up person at that time. Yeah.
The only fucked up thing about Bill Cosby is it's how he judged everyone about everything else.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what the fucked up part was. Judging people with their comedy act and stuff, and how you shouldn't do this and talk about that. And this guy's
or even pull up your pants. Meanwhile, he's pulling down people's pants.
Exactly. Exactly. So now, how did you get into stand-up comedy?
A woman talked me into trying it.
What?
I was on a date. Well, let me put it this way. I have some friends who are actors, and I never wanted to be an actor. I was in the 5th grade play, and I hated it and never wanted to be on a stage again. And then I was on a date with somebody, and she said, "You're funny. You should try stand-up." And I said, "I don't want to perform." And she said she had just taken a comedy class, and I should go see her class performance. And I did, and they were better than I thought they'd be. And I'm like, wait, I can do this. And I took the class, and 6 years later said, I don't want to work in the daytime anymore. But now here I am in the daytime. So
true enough.
We got lucky this year. Has
a woman ever made you do something that you didn't think you'd want to do at first?
Yeah, get a haircut.
Oh yeah.
From someone who didn't know how to cut hair. You know what I mean? So you can, oh yeah, so you could tell the hair was all fucked up. You know what I mean? So this is why I appreciate my barber. You know
but wait a minute. Did she sleep with you after she cut your hair?
No.
Should have just lied on the air. Screw that. I got.
What's her name? We got to send her a nasty letter.
Yeah, we got to get.
Oh no. She know who it is.
We got to get her on here. You know what I mean? So I remember I got forced into. A woman made me eat sushi. I was like, fuck. I was like, that thing looks disgusting. Now I'm in love with it now. Like, I thank her today. But I remember throughout the whole day putting these fucking things in my mouth, being like, please don't puke. Please don't puke. You know what I mean? So I'm like, hey, I'm freaking out. I'm like, shit. And at the end of the day, she's like, do you? I didn't even know if I liked it because I was so concentrated on not puking. But later on in life, I end up loving it. But the things we do for some women sometimes, you know.
Yeah, but wait a minute. So I have to say, if you did puke and she still slept with you, that's a keeper.
That's true. Thinking about that one didn't sleep with me either. Man, we suck, man.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, try all sorts of fucked up shit for no reason, you know?
True enough.
So, what's your process on writing jokes?
I really don't even know how to figure that out. Stuff occurs to me. I mean, sometimes, like the formulaic jokes like you see on late night television about politicians or stuff like that, those are pretty easy to write because you just take two things and you contrast them. So that's like when Trump was president, you might say, you know, Trump met with Putin. One of them's a tyrannical, homicidal, madman dictator, and the other one's Russian. You know, that you just pretty easy. But stuff that's a little more complicated. Sometimes I take a story, something that happened in my life, and I just twist it a little bit. Well, as an example, when I started in comedy, I would watch, you know, listen to a Bill Cosby record. I loved the way he told stories about his life, and I would think, I wish I had stuff in my life that I could tell stories about, but I've had a boring suburban, you know, life. And then I realized I did have stuff, and you take a few details and you twist them, and you got a story. And I was driving to a gig and listening to Gary Gulman, a great American comedian, on a podcast, and he was talking about depression, and a joke popped into my head that I could never commit suicide because I'm too much of a perfectionist to actually finish a suicide note. and I like pulled over on the side of the road and I started writing, and you know, I had about 2 minutes of material and went to the gig and tried it out. But then strangely enough, and he wasn't talking about suicide or suicide notes, he was just talking about depression. Later on, he came out with the same sort of joke, but the opposite. He said he could never commit suicide because he hates writing. Okay. But and sometimes I just wake up in the middle of the night with stuff in my head.
I could imagine.
Wow.
So now something pops in your head. What do you do? Is it pen and paper? Well, now
immediately,
yeah.
I know the younger generation will use a cell phone, but I can write quicker than I can type on a phone.
Yeah. By the time
God. I just actually, the reason Ophira Eisenberg was on my mind, I just wrote to her about a gig, and I sent her an email yesterday and she didn't respond, and I thought, well, a text would be more immediate. And I sent her a text, and I've got to learn to turn my phone sideways to make the keyboard bigger because I'm typing. What I wrote was, please check your email about a paying gig, Shaun. And I'm lucky I proofread because autocorrect changed it to, please check email about praying for Shaun. And I'm like, oh, man.
Those autocorrects, I've read them, you know, and you see them online, you see the autograph. It's happened only once. It was a good friend of mine, nothing sexual. We were always good friends. And I said, hey, get ready to party on my body. But I was trying to say birthday. So send, and I went, oh, shit. You know what I mean? Didn't proofread, you know. And she's like, what? I'm like, no. On my B-day, birthday, not body.
Oh.
But yeah.
You would think B-Day would be something it would be in the texting dictionary.
And I never, and you know, someone needs to notice that I will never write the word duck. It is fuck that I write it. You know what I mean?
Well, you know why? More people say fuck than duck, and that's why it changes it.
Yeah, every time duck, I'm like, no, come on, man. Now that'll just ruin my whole thing. There's no more anger in my text message anymore, right?
Well, there's also no context. For instance, I had a GPS before there were GPS and phones. I had a GPS. And it told me to get off this exit in Manhattan. It said, get off on Riverside Doctor. And I'm like, no, DR period means drive. Yeah. You idiot.
It's so true, man. It's so true. So now, Shaun, now I want to know, you're on stage. There's that asshole right over there. You know, he decides to be a heckler. He's giving you a hard time. How do you handle that? Do you have any stories? Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, it happens to everybody. And I think as a profession, we brought it on ourselves because if you talk back in a Broadway show, they would just grab you and throw you out. There'd be no conversation.
True, true.
But comedians have engaged with the audience, and so sometimes people think it's part of the show. And there are some comics who like it. And if it's an intelligent conversation, it's not bad. But I've learned a few things. One is if you dress decently on stage, you get heckled a lot less. So the comedian who goes on stage in a T-shirt and jeans is going to get talked back to much more than like now. I'm just wearing a collared shirt. It's a polo shirt. It's not all buttoned down. But even this and shoes will get more respect than sneakers and a T-shirt.
Wow. Okay.
And because I guess just in their brain, like, he's management. I don't know. But the thing to do is first you try to ignore them, and then you try to be polite to them. And then you got to slam them if you have to. But one of the things is it's usually somebody in the front, right? Because people in the back are not going to yell across the room.
True.
It's usually somebody in the front. And unless they're loud, the rest of the audience can't hear them. So if you start slamming them immediately, this happened when I was new. I was like giving somebody shit up front, and nobody knew why. And they're like, why was he being mean to that person?
Yeah.
And so you got to repeat what they say. But sometimes you stare at them, you pause. I found if you ask their name, they're no longer anonymous. And now, like, it's personal. Now it's a little harder for them to talk back.
I like that. I like that.
But we also learn there's different kinds of hecklers. The worst, it's a bachelorette party. Every comedian will say this. And the reason is, at a bachelorette party, the bride-to-be, the whole world is supposed to revolve around her that night. All her friends are making a big deal about her. But then she goes to a comedy club, and it's not about her anymore.
Wow.
And she's drunk. So that's...
Yeah.
At least guys, when we have bachelor parties, have the decency to go to strip clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still about us.
and we're assholes. We throw bachelor parties, not even about the bachelor.
Yeah. You know what? If I were on stage at a comedy club and the bachelorette party were sticking $10 bills down my pants, maybe I would let them keep talking.
True. They can say whatever they want. They can heckle me about what's going on down there too. I totally get that. But there's this one, talking about bachelor parties, Shaun, there was this one time we couldn't get a friend. His wife wouldn't let him out. Wouldn't let him out. Like, didn't matter what. We almost created a fake Facebook friend to create that he was going to get married with a fake bachelor party. It almost happened. Someone else eventually did get married, but it was this close to being like, created an account, like Photoshop some photos with him and, tell his wife that he has no choice to, to come out for the bachelor party. But that was more on a selfish tip of us because we wanted everyone to go out. But the bachelorettes. Now, my question is, at a comedy club, is there something in the air that makes everything fucking funnier?
Reefer smoke?
Is that what it is? I don't smoke. I come to a comedy club. I don't know if the same joke is funnier outside or I'm dying of laughter inside.
Well, there's a few reasons. One, alcohol definitely helps loosen people up.
Yes, yeah.
But also, you're in an environment where you go there to laugh. And I say the secret to comedy is 100 people in a room that holds 70. And the reason is everybody's packed close, and the ceilings are low, the walls are close in, and laughter echoes.
Wow.
And when you hear other people laughing, you start laughing.
It's an addiction. It gets
so the more other people are laughing, the more you laugh, and it spreads. So that definitely helps.
Yeah,
and also, we're fucking funny. Doesn't that count?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but I'm just wondering if that same act would be funny at my house. I don't know. Like, I'm always like, because I've never had a bad time at a comedy club. It is one of the best places to go. It's a great place to bring a date. I think it's fucking fantastic.
I'm glad you think it's a great place to bring a date, because sometimes what happens is, this is talking about heckling. Your date says, why don't we go to a comedy club, like on a first date, and the guy wants to talk. He wants to be the center of her attention, right? But now there's a guy on stage, and she's paying attention to the guy on stage, and the guy on stage is making him laugh.
True. And
her date's not making her laugh. So he feels like he's got to outdo the comedian. That's why he starts talking.
Terrible.
I'm too selfish. It's about me. I want to laugh too.
Yeah. Well, you have a good attitude. But I mean, it would be as funny in your house, but there wouldn't be as much laughter. I mean,
no, I get it. I get that. When someone, the laughter and the energy, right?
Yeah. And and also, you say that it also builds. And you're in Canada. Canadians are much smarter than Americans when it comes to stand-up comedy. Because in American comedy clubs, generally, the MC, the first person on stage, is the newest comic, and they've got the hardest job. They've got to warm up the audience. They've got to get people laughing. Because people just came out, they've been waiting in line. They came from maybe a hard day at work. They're having trouble with their family. They sit down to laugh, but you really got to get them going. But in Canada and pretty much everywhere else in the world, the MC is one of the better comics in the show. But what you've got is you've got people who gotten you used to laughing. So you say, is the joke that the comedian tells an hour in as funny as in your house? Well, maybe an hour in it would be, but not if you just walked in the door and started performing.
Yeah, I can get that. I get that.
Dig it. You know, name your favorite venue to perform at.
I perform in theaters a lot, and it's so nice to perform in a theater. It's so weird. You go to a comedy club, and you walk in, and it's crowded, and maybe the comedians have to huddle at the bar before the show or during the show, and they basically say, you stand over there, stay out of the way, don't trip the waitress. He'll tell you when it's your time to come on stage. And you go to a theater, and sometimes you drive up, and there's a guy at the entrance with a headset, and he's like, the artists are here. And he opens the door, and he walks you into a green room, and they hand you a menu, and they say, just whatever you want, let us know, and tell us when you want to eat dinner. And it's just a different level of treatment. But any place we get to go and make people laugh is good. So I'm not putting down comedy clubs. They're a great place to work.
Yeah. Now you're writing your material, you get ideas. When or how do you get the chance to practice your material before you get on stage?
Well, that's really a two-part question, because there's fine-tuning the material and there's rehearsing. And I've discovered during the pandemic that because I'm a better writer than performer, I've needed to rehearse, and I never did. And I've been rehearsing at home, just walking around the house, just talking to the walls, has made me more energetic on stage. So that's definitely helped. People say, oh, you can't rehearse, you got to just go in front of an audience. That definitely helps. But new jokes I'll write, and you can go to an open mic night and see how it goes. But at least in New York, that's just other comedians waiting for their turn on stage. Most of them are new, and it's tough. So you sometimes you try a joke. You don't open with a new joke, and you don't close with a new joke. You sandwich it somewhere in the middle, and if it doesn't work, you abandon it and maybe try it a little differently next time.
Nice method. I like that.
That's cool.
Although I break that rule all the time, because if I think of a joke driving to a gig, I'm so excited I want to open with that joke because I'm so enthusiastic about it. And it seems to work okay.
Hold on, we got a question from E-Rock from Vancouver. Musical acts have turned to streaming performances online. Can a stand-up comedian pull the same thing off?
That's a good question. It's harder. We've been doing Zoom shows. I did a Zoom show. Today is Saturday. I did a Zoom show 2 nights ago for a high school PTA, and it's harder because there's a delay. I talked about you need to hear laughter. But there seems to be about a second delay on Zoom. So you tell a joke, and you pause where you think there's going to be laughter, and if there's no laughter for a second, the temptation is to just keep going. And that doesn't work, because then you're stepping on your laughter. People start laughing a little bit later, and you don't hear them, because on Zoom you don't, when one person's talking, you don't hear all the other voices.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a lot harder to do that, but we're getting better at it. Some of us are sort of figuring out the medium, but it's taking some time.
Oh, that's good.
You find it just a tad like you just obviously you wish the crowd was there. You know what I mean? Like, do you just find it's a little strange to get started without having the actual crowd in front of you? Well,
the good thing is, depending on what the view is, I did the Zoom show. I emceed. I opened the show, and the next comedian up saw there's a grid on Zoom with all the different faces.
Okay.
And the bottom half is people who just don't have their face displayed. They don't have the image.
That's right.
And that's annoying, because you want to talk to them.
Okay.
But she was talking to the people she could see, and she's like, Joe, that's a nice kitchen. You must be rich. What do you do for a living, or whatever?
Nice.
And just get a conversation going.
That's nice.
Well, plus the people you get the vibe, you get the energy of the room. You know what I mean?
Well, that's everything. It's even with live performance. So with BAM, you know what I mean? That would be the same thing with a musician, right? They still probably would prefer that energy from the people, right? So,
but there's also, I guess, on Zoom there's less of a worry. Well, of course, stuff happens. Somebody, the phone rings, or you got an older couple, and they don't realize their mic is live, and they start talking to each other, and everybody can hear it.
Yeah.
But in a comedy club, the waitress might drop a tray of drinks, and everybody turns to see what that's about. You've got to bring their attention back. So there is stuff that or somebody gets up and walks in front of the stage to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Something I do.
Some people do, yeah. They're in the fucking
Getting old, I gotta pee, man. You know, my bladder's weak. My bladder's weak.
Near the door, then.
You know, well, that's what I do. You know, but I'm big. You know, I'm 6'4". You know, so I definitely get noticed. You know, the comedian be like, "Hey, you." I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go." You know, but which is fun. I enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because I have thick skin, so I don't mind being picked on. You know what I mean?
Just say you made me laugh so hard I have to pee.
True enough.
What's the most memorable performance in your career so far?
Wow. I don't know. That's tomorrow's.
Yeah, well, it could be, yeah.
I tend to forget. Here's the good thing about, I started a little older than most comics, and there's some wisdom that comes with age, because if you're 20 and you have a terrible show, you're miserable for a week. And if you're 40 and you have a terrible show, you're like, well, something went wrong. If I record most of my shows, like I'm going to look at the video, I'm going to think about what went wrong, and make sure it doesn't happen again. And by the way, I have a show tomorrow night, and I'm going to do better tomorrow. So as an example of that, I did a show at a theater in Connecticut, and just one joke that I've been telling about an ex-girlfriend just didn't get a good reaction. And I'm like, I don't know what I did differently. And I watched the video. I'm glad I recorded it. I watched the video, and I looked angry when I told the story about her. I'm like, so it didn't look, and it's not even a girlfriend I'm angry with, right? We're friends, but I realized I've got to tell that joke with a smile on my face just to remind myself, don't sound angry. And it's been fine since. But
I get the delivery, I guess so, right? So you're like, oh man, he's really into it. You know what I mean? You're not telling the joke now. You're just telling us the story, right? So that's what it looks like. Yeah, I can see that with the delivery. Yeah.
Well, there's actually one memorable show. I did a show with two colleagues at a synagogue in Ohio. And one of the things we do at the end of shows is we take questions from the audience. And the questions, usually it's 5 or 10 minutes, but this was like 35 minutes of questions. And they were really curious. And one of them said, Dave Chappelle lives like 10 minutes from here. And I was with my colleague, Wally Collins, and it's like, Dave Chappelle's one of my best friends. And somebody said, call him up. Oops. And Wally takes out his phone, and somebody else like, tell him you'll meet him at the Milk Mart or some like local hangout.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we found out Dave Chappelle was in Vegas, so we just got his voicemail. But I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. He's like, I'm going to call Dave Chappelle from stage and see if he wants to come hang out. That's hilarious. So I figured Dave Chappelle owes me. Yeah. And I know he watches your podcast. So Dave, call me.
Dave, we'll send this clip it over to him. So Shaun, we tried asking about your memorable, your most memorable time on stage, right? But has there ever been a time where you actually just bombed?
Of course.
Yeah. Now, tell me the feeling from start to finish. You're bombing during stage, and then afterwards, like, how do you recuperate? How do you get your stuff together and be like?
Well, it's the worst. Obviously, it's the worst feeling in the world. It's like you were playing baseball and you struck out in the 9th inning.
Yeah, that's right.
Except everybody strikes out in the 9th inning. I mean, nobody never has a bad day at work.
Right.
And sometimes I address it by saying, "Hey, do you ever have a bad day at work?" That's what's happening to me.
Oh yeah.
But I can think of two circumstances. One is when I was new. I knew I was a decent writer and a not good performer, and I was not worried about any of that. My biggest fear was forgetting my material. And so I go on stage at a comedy club, and I realize I've just gone blank. But luckily, I had a set list, a list of my jokes with me, and I said, "Let's go to the pocket of funny." And I pulled the set list out. I opened it up. And they're laughing at that, and I'm like, "Fine, at least I have." So I always go on stage with a list in my pocket, but I haven't had to look at it. Nice. But I also did a show at a singles event, and that was a woman called me up and she said, "We're going to do speed dating, and before the speed dating, you have a puzzled look on your face." Should I explain speed dating?
No, I know what it is. But okay. I'm just trying to see the comedian whilst that's why I'm waiting for you to...
stupid. So she said, before speed dating, we want some comedy. And I'm like, they want to meet each other. They don't want to listen to me. I was trying to talk her out of the gig. And she said, no, we really want to do this. And I said, okay, well, you got to tell them I'm coming so that they know it's only going to be a half hour of me and then the speed dating. By the way, what age group is this for?
Yeah.
Because you can't have 20-year-olds and 70-year-olds. And she's like, oh, it's all ages. And I'm like, oh, my God. So I get there, and she says, we decided not to do the speed dating, so we're just going to have you do stand-up. But, of course, they're all at a bar, like, trying to meet each other. And I'm trying to tell jokes. And I did the best I could. And some people are paying attention and others didn't want me there. And I've explained to people, stand-up comedy is not background music.
No,
right? People have to pay attention.
And that's what the look was on my face. I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to talk to this girl quickly for the speed dating scenario, and then have this comedian I want to listen to at the exact same time? That's why I was just like, what the fuck?
So they did announce there would be a comedian before, a happy hour, but people didn't want that. They wanted to meet each other. And afterwards, one of the guys, there's a guy there, came over and he said, just looked at me and said, you need better material.
Oh. And
I got pissed. I said, you know what? I've sold jokes to late night TV hosts. I know my material is fine. I'm a good writer. But the fact that you would say something like that to me after I did my best under difficult circumstances proves that what I really needed was a supportive audience and not a bunch of assholes like you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A slap across the face wouldn't have been bad either, brother.
Yeah, but they knew who I was, so I couldn't smack them at him.
He hit you first.
I just that was my puzzle look. I just couldn't see that type of event meshing together properly. That's why I was just like, no. I
have to turn down gigs here and there because people say, "Oh, it would be great. We'll have a comedian." I'm like, it's the wrong place for a comedian.
Yes.
There are comics who, sometimes I'm asked to perform at weddings, and I say no. There are comics who will perform at weddings, but I'm like, what if somebody interrupts me and heckles and won't shut up because Uncle Irving is drunk, and I can't shut him up because this is the biggest day of two people's lives.
Yep.
And I don't want to ruin it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to get blamed.
Oh, trust me, DJing weddings was the toughest thing because I'd have the aunt or the mom busting balls about playing the worst song in history, and I was like, "Fuck my life." Now what I used to do, and Alex, a friend of the show's, he's a DJ also. He used to get, "What's your name?" and they'd ask why, and we're like, "Well, we're going to request this song dedicated to you, so when the song fucking bombs, it's your fault and not ours," right? Because as a DJ, it was hard because once the dance floor gets blown up and everyone goes back to their seats because the music sucks, it's hard to get them back. You know what I mean? So now you don't want to take blame for that. So yeah, it was something that it was just like, and then it made them think, okay, maybe I don't want to give them my name. Maybe the song is, because they come up to me thinking, do you know what's going to be really, really funny? So you play the chicken dance, and you're like, nah, motherfucker, that ain't funny. You know what I mean?
I don't have that song.
I know, and that's the day the internet, trust me, they have their phone in my face with their little Spotify. Play this.
Yeah, but I don't have the rights to play that song at a wedding. This is a paid gig. I can't do that.
I know. It wasn't I guess every wedding, but that's how it was. So, but you're right. You can't tell certain people off because that person could be something. It's someone important to the bride and groom, right? Or you don't know,
Well, if the bride or groom asks you, I guess that's different.
Yeah, you kind of have to suck it up, but whatever.
And y'all talking about this, and I'm thinking the very, very worst case scenario, you end up fighting the whole goddamn family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know what? It's a no-win situation with that. That's crazy.
You get somebody who's mentally challenged in the front row and they're talking to you and you tell them to shut up, not realizing that they've got a mental problem.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, why are you picking on Steve?
Yeah, that can go. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I did a corporate gig a few years ago, and boy, did they fuck this up. So the guy the guy who hired me told me, we have a corporate rule against serving alcohol at company functions. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. He said, so instead, what I did is I got the company to pay for Visa gift cards. I said there were going to be door prizes for some of the employees, but instead I went to the bartender and I gave him the cards and I said, people here drink free until the money runs out. And he tells the employees this, which of course means I better get drunk fast because at some point the bar closes and nobody knows when that's going to be. So half the audience is hammered. And I'm doing really well, but there's a guy, and I'm Jewish, and I occasionally mention it in my act. And like 5 or 10 minutes before I'm done, there's a guy at a table nearby, and I mention I'm Jewish, and he stands up and gives a Nazi salute. And what I should have done is said, you know what? You can't pay me enough to deal with this shit. Fuck you all, and walk out. But instead, and he'd been disrupted the whole time, and I was trying to negotiate with him. But again, in a corporate event, it's like a wedding. You can't be too mean because you don't know who the guy is. But I would say, HR is paying attention, or your annual review has been moved to tomorrow. Everything to make them think, oh, maybe I've had too much to drink and I should shut up. But he didn't. When he did that, I said, I'll tell you what. I will bet you $20 that you can't shut up until the end of my set. And he's like, done. I'm like, no, put your $20 down. I put my $20 in front of the guy next to him. And I said, you got to put your money down. He put his $20 down. And he shut up for the rest of the set. And I said, thank you, good night. You know, when I finished, I said, thank you, good night. And he's like, yeah, I won. He grabbed the money. And I'm like, best $20 I ever spent.
I won, dummy. Yeah.
And 3 people came up to me afterwards and handed me $20. And after the first one, I said no to the other 2. But it didn't even cost me the $20.
But is there a limit to what someone could fucking say to you before you absolutely say screw this and I'm walking? Because that's for me that is for me that would be it. You know what I mean? Like it would be like that would be my sign. Exit. Drop. Mic drop. See you the fuck later. Right?
And I think I was new. I think what I should have said is inappropriate.
Yeah.
And, you know, you do your best. You want a reference. You hope you can come back.
True.
But I should have just said. I'm out of here. I don't need your money. No, and I hope you realize how inappropriate this is.
Right.
And because if you're the guy who hired me and you hadn't paid me yet, wouldn't you pay me for that even if I just walked out?
100%.
Definitely. You know, and it's crazy because if you would have did that and walked out tomorrow or the next work day, he would have been the fucking
That's
joke.
what I'm saying, yeah.
You know what I mean? He would have been the joke of the whole damn company.
Fucked it up for everyone else, yeah.
And here's the other thing. I learned this actually. I record my shows. In a situation like that, I don't have a video camera because it would be kind of weird to figure out where to set it up. But I put an audio recorder on a stool right next to me and I record the show. And I learned Sarah Silverman did a corporate show, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And they said she was inappropriate and she was supposed to do 30 minutes and she only did 18 or something like that. Oh, wow. Sarah Silverman's reaction to that was, you hired Sarah Silverman. Yeah. What did you got Sarah Silverman. This is what you expected. And also, I did 38 minutes. I can prove it. I recorded it. Wow. And that was the end of the conflict. So I record everything because if somebody pays me for a half hour, I don't want somebody saying you did 26 minutes, even though big deal. Yeah. But if I have it recorded, I can prove, you know.
But it's funny, Bam, like, see, he has to do stuff like that to prove that he actually fulfilled his commitment. Mm-hmm. You know, that's crazy how, like, how other professions that need to do certain things to, like, fuck you. I got proof that I actually did this, you know what
I mean? Most places you don't need to prove it, so it rarely comes up. But if you're a psychologist and you're giving somebody 50 minutes and you start at 9 o'clock and at 9:40 they say we're done, you just look at your watch and say no, we're not.
That's right. My masseuse fucked me 12 minutes last time.
You know, you spend $75 for a concert and the fucking rapper shows up 2 hours fucking later. You know what I mean? You're pissed. It's like, give me back my money, bro. You know, or at least let me get on stage and fucking rap with you. You know what I'm saying? Let me get my money's worth. You know, so I could dig it sometimes that you got to prove, you got to be there on time and be professional. You know,
I have the opposite. My contract says I reserve the right to shorten any show that starts more than an hour late without a reduction in my fee, unless it's my fault.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because it's actually, contracts are kind of funny. You may run into this, wedding DJs and stuff. Your contract is like a half a page. You just write, I'm going to do this and you're going to pay me this. And then something goes wrong and you're like, oh, I got to add a clause in the contract.
Dude, he is 100%
And the next, and I was doing a show at a theater and a guy's working in the theater said to his boss, why is there so much stupid shit in contracts? And the theater director said, everything you see in a contract is because some shit went wrong the last time. And so now my contract is like 3 pages just because.
He's 100% right.
Yeah. Shit went wrong.
Every fucking time. Dude, I have to, in my contract as a DJ, ask for a plug. Because I need electricity to run my equipment.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, oh, I don't know. And you're like, where the fuck do I want to plug this thing? The dumbest thing. You have to give me enough room to put my equipment. Dude, it just got bigger and bigger. He's 100% right because it's all dumb common sense stuff.
Wow.
Because you have to protect yourself by the time you get to the venue. It's so stupid.
And I've heard comedians showing up and people like, I thought you brought this. You would bring the sound system.
Oh, my God.
I can, but you got to tell me.
Yes.
And I say to them, and this is what I do. Now, you have to bring sound because you're going to places probably you don't have it.
Yeah.
Unless I'm going to a private home, I expect if I'm doing a show in the back room of a restaurant that somebody or a bar that they're going to provide it. And I say to them, I can provide it. I charge $200. You can probably rent one cheaper.
Yes.
I just don't like the inconvenience of it. And also, I just don't want to bring the shit through in the rain because that's a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
But I have a clause in my contract now that I'm going to try to do my best to give it to you word for word. The show may not be moved from indoors to outdoors without my express written consent, which I'm not going to give you. Because I showed up. It was actually a country club I showed up at, and it was near my house. And I went there 2 days before, and I said, okay, this is where you're going to put the stage. And they didn't have stage lighting, and I've since bought stage lighting. But I said, okay, these are the lights I want on. Those are the lights I want off. Mm-hmm. And I even went into the room, the closet that held all the light switches, and we figured out which switches were which.
Yeah.
And I put little Post-it notes on the switches that were to remain on. And I said, so you're not flipping lights on and off. The ones with the green Post-it notes stay on. All the others go off.
Nice.
Which I thought was pretty smart. Mm-hmm. So the afternoon of the show, I get a call. We're doing the show outside. And this is before I had that clause in my contract. I said, no. And they said, oh, yeah, the members, it's a nice night. The members really want it outside. And I'm like, but no, it's,
yeah,
the lighting's not going to be right. The sound's not going to be right. People are distracted. And a colleague of mine is like, and there's mosquitoes. I'm like, I didn't even think of that. So, but unfortunately we get there and the sound system they had for outside was just a mic and a lectern. And the speaker in front of the lectern, which points that way. And we were not like in the grass. We were on a balcony. So it was like one aisle with one row of tables to each side. So what I had to do is point the lectern one way and shout the other way so everybody could hear me. And it was the show went decently well. I worked with two really great comics, but boy, was that a stupid idea.
They never ever think about the performance itself.
No, they don't.
No, and I'm like, I'm the expert. You pay me for my expertise. This is what I do for a living.
I remember the one wedding, I had to argue with the wedding venue about it's either going to be me or the fucking popcorn machine. You know, you know what I mean? He's like, well, what do you do with the popcorn machine? I'm like, you pick which one you think is more important right now for this wedding. Like, you know what I mean? It's me or the popcorn.
Was it the noise was the issue?
I needed the plug. I needed that plug.
The plug?
The fucking plug. He can move it anywhere else.
They didn't have, nobody had an extension cord?
Everything was taken. Uplighting was taken on the right, and they had those big wall dividers that have no power on them. You know? And I was just like, so I had the one plug in my section, and it was a popcorn machine. I was like, you had to move that. He's like, well, that's what they want. I said, cool. You have to come to the conclusion, me or the fucking popcorn machine. Like, you know, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy. Like I'm making him make the wrong decision. You know what I mean? My mind was blown. There's been some venues where they're like, do you have enough room? I said no, and she went, and walked away. And I'm like, what the fuck does it? Why ask if you don't give a shit? First of all, that's one. Wow. Two, she tells me at the end, when I'm trying to set up, that the whole right side of the building has no power. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ!
And I had that happen.
You see what I mean? It is. People do not understand before you get on stage or perform. There's a bunch of other obstacles that no one will ever know. Or, you know, the setup, it was incredible. And that there's some people that their minds are just, they don't give a shit about the performance. They think you're a magic man. You get on stage, you can perform in front of anyone at any time and everything.
Right, you're a professional, so you can deal with every problem.
Exactly.
You're like, go ahead, play basketball in a minefield. No problem.
That's exactly it. You know, it's funny, but you're 100% right. I'm happy you brought up the contract. Our contract was 3 pages. It started off with half a page.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that I had to write stupidity in there to protect myself.
I did a show at a synagogue a few years ago, and it wasn't my show. I was a comedian in somebody else's show. There were 3 or 4 of us. And they're like, oh, these outlets don't work. I guess we'll have to set up the sound system somewhere else. And there was like, we need an extension cord to set it up. Like, we don't have an extension cord. How do you not have an extension cord? And they're like, well, the closet's locked.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the rabbi has the key. Let's call her up and get her to come in. Because the custodian wasn't there. Nobody had the key. And so they go to get they call the rabbi and she's on her way in. And then she gets there and she said, so what did you need? And they're like, an extension cord. She said, why? And we're like, because those outlets on this side of the room don't work. And she's like, oh yeah, one of those outlets is broken. So just to make sure nothing goes wrong, we always keep that circuit breaker off. So none of the outlets work. And so she goes and she flips the circuit breaker on. I'm like, and everything was fine. We already moved everything. And
it's the best, man. It's
Terrible.
Tell you, man, behind the scenes, man.
Wow. What's the best and worst thing about your job, brother?
The best thing is I'm self-employed. I work for people I want to work with. I don't work with people I don't want to work with. Unless I'm flying somewhere, I don't think I've used my alarm clock well, obviously during the pandemic, I've almost never used it. But even before that, unless I have a flight, I don't have to wake up at any given time. Nobody's making me do a show at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And listen, I get to make people laugh for a living, so that's the best job in the world. The drawbacks are everybody thinks they're an expert on what I do. So they're like, you know what you should do? You should go on the Tonight Show. I'm like, yeah, you know what you should do? You should be CEO of IBM. You don't just go on the Tonight Show.
Right.
Don't worry. I used to get people, you know who you should interview? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's just that easy. You know what I mean?
Paul McCartney. You should interview Paul McCartney.
No problem. Exactly. It's funny. Everyone is an expert. They just think everything's easy. If you make it seem easy, then they make it. They think they can do it. That's what it is, and it's a lot of practice. You know what I mean? But
it's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and like I try to tell the fans who watch the show that, you know, Duss, he puts a lot of work in this. You know what I mean? He puts way more than I do, and I admit it. You know what I mean? He's the harder worker on this one, and I appreciate it. You get what I mean?
But you're an American. He's got to do 30% more work just because of the exchange rate.
Yeah, but I guess this inflation's a little bit bigger on this case. So it's about like 80%, I think, right, Dad?
You know, yeah. No. He does a lot more. You know what I mean? So, you know, and I appreciate it. You know, and I let people know it's the things he got to deal with. And me, I don't like to talk to people. You know what I mean? He's more of a, you know, I'll talk to you, text and this and that, range and stuff like that. Me, if we face to face, we can work it out. You know what I mean? And I'll hold you to what you said. But
all right, you want to be face to face? Hold on.
All right.
Is that better?
Now he feels at home now.
There you go. You know, but yeah, it's a lot behind the scenes, man. A lot of people don't even appreciate it.
So Shaun, as a comedian, is there something that you just won't touch, won't joke about?
You know, it's so funny funny to me, interesting, not necessarily funny. But I also already mentioned it here. I always thought that I would never do a joke about suicide because I can't see how to make that funny. I even hate when comedians are on stage and they'll go like this, like, I couldn't believe I did that, like, kill me, that kind of thing. And Eric, we're sorry you dumped a bunch of money into equipment during the pandemic, but the pandemic's going to end soon. Anyway, I thought I would never do a joke about suicide. And then, as I told you earlier, I thought of a joke about suicide. But the joke really isn't about killing yourself. It's about the inability to kill yourself.
Yes, that's
right. So it's about, you know, being a perfectionist and writing the suicide note and rewriting it, and then what happens. And then in the story, I sell the suicide note because I'm not going to use it. I worry about getting blamed for the person and like, why is this suicide note like 106 pages long with footnotes?
But do you find as a comedian, like, you know what I mean? We used to watch stuff like Richard Pryor and the stuff, you know, like the stuff that they got away with, the wide range of jokes. Yeah. Do you find it's harder to be a comedian today with the, you know, the sensitivity lines?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Being drawn big time. Yes.
It's not that much harder for me because I don't tend to do the jokes that piss people off. But occasionally I post something on Facebook and somebody will get offended.
Oh, come on.
You don't understand.
I took a walk on Facebook and someone's going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
That's just the way Facebook
But if it's somebody you're friends with, you don't want to pick a fight.
Oh, no.
And
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of times they don't realize that you're not making fun of the victim in a joke. Because people will say, you know, you can punch up, but don't punch down. So if, like, right now, Asians are having a lot of trouble in America, there's a lot of anti-Asian discrimination. And if you make a joke that's about racism, that's not racist, people think sometimes you're supporting the racism when you're making fun of the racism because they're just so uncomfortable with the topic. But then they'll say, yeah, but just bringing up the topic makes people uncomfortable and you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, I can't help it if shit triggers people.
Yes, well, I agree.
I just don't like the fact that, you know, somebody said something 15 years ago and people are dragging that up now. You know what I mean? It's like, if we didn't have the technology we had now, back then, now, you know, they wouldn't even know about it. So why are you dragging something up that doesn't even really matter? You know what I mean? It's been said, gone, and done with. Let that go for a minute, and let's talk about what the current situation is and bring up that. You know what I mean? People just keep pulling things out the hat from way back. This person said this, and that person did that, and da-da-da. And it's like, listen, if this person was like that back then, he's still like that now. You know what I mean? Nothing changed. You know what I mean? Nothing changed, you know?
I'm so glad that they didn't have social media when I was 17, or I would have been in a lot of trouble. But
You know,
Can't
you think
everybody
about it,
said some fucked up shit in their life.
Oh,
yeah, and it's like the editor. They just hired a new editor at Teen Vogue, and they fired her like on her first day or something because of something she wrote 10 years ago. And she's 27, so she was probably 17 when she wrote it. I don't know exactly what they wrote. What she wrote. They said it was racist and homophobic. But you know, if she'd shot somebody at 17, she'd be out of jail by now, and we decide to rehabilitate her.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I agree.
So it depends. I mean, it depends how bad it was, but if you accept the fact that somebody admits they made a mistake and learn from it, you know, let them.
Now, is she now that they caught her, or you know, they noticed that she said something about 9-10 years ago? Is she fucked for every other position at that level?
Probably. Well,
you know what I mean? That sucks now. So
right now, she'll be doing freelance gigs till she's 60 because nobody will give her a full time job.
You know what I mean? Like I was a fucking retard when I was 17.
Yeah,
you know, like, I was a full dummy. Like I was probably I would kick my 17-year-old self in the ass. You know what I mean? Like I see myself in other people. I'm like, what a loser. I'm like, that was me when I was 17. You know, like everyone grows up and becomes something else. So I don't know. You're right. I remember because who else was it? The Larry the Cable Guy got in shit for something he said about, I don't know, some sort of like, he made a joke about the rims outside got, you know, something about being in the ghetto. They got stolen faster than a Puff Daddy concert, something like that. And you know, and everyone laughed. And now it's like, oh no, he shouldn't have said that. And it was like such a long time ago. And it's like things that bite you in the ass. But the thing is, what about all the hypocrites that laughed at those jokes too?
Yeah, everybody is part to blame. You get what I mean? And you know, this sucks because I was watching something yesterday, and you know, they monetized and you know publicized and said it's normal for certain things. You get what I'm saying? And big companies are behind it. You get what I'm saying? You know, I seen a picture with Martin Luther King standing in front of the bus. You know that famous imagery. You know, he's standing in front of a bus with a big Pepsi sign on the front of the bus. And the racist part about that picture is the Pepsi. Why would you put your banner on a bus that tells people that different color you have to sit in the back? So you're just saying it's okay for it to be what it is. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody pointed that out to me, and I'm like, because I would have never put two and two together until someone said it, and I was like, oh shit, that's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean?
Even if Martin Luther King Jr. were wearing a shirt and they turned it from a blank T-shirt to a Pepsi shirt, that's still, you know, that's not supporting racism, but it's still, how dare you co-opt such an important part of American history, a struggle, to sell your product?
Right. You see what I'm saying? So, and it's been going on. So it's to the point where, like I said, if you said something this time back in the day and then it comes back and bites, it's like, you know, with the Aunt Jemima, this and that and everything. And it's like, I get it. You understood. You did wrong. You're trying to change it. That's the best way to go about it. You know what I mean? Let's recognize it, change it, and keep moving. You know what I mean? So people get a little too sensitive sometimes. But
here's the thing. You're talking about Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah.
His name is not Larry the Cable Guy. That's a character played by a comedian named Dan Whitten.
That's right.
So, or Andrew Dice Clay. Now his name is Andrew Clay Silverman or Silverberg.
Yeah.
But that's not even the point. These are characters. So if Andrew Dice Clay is a sexist schmuck, people are laughing, and maybe they agree with the sexist schmuck. Maybe they don't. If it's funny, they laugh.
Yeah.
And some people have a problem with that. Nobody has a problem with an actor named Carroll O'Connor playing a bigot named Archie Bunker. That they're fine with. That's the character. But when a comedian is the same way,
that's fucking funny, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you had George Jefferson. You know what I mean? You had the equivalent of the same thing. You know what I mean? But me and you, we're older, so we know about this. You know what I mean? A lot of people, young people, don't understand that show dynamic, right? You know, you had Archie Bunker and the Jeffersons moving on up.
Yeah.
He was the black version of Archie fucking Bunker. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know what? Everybody was trying to balance out.
He was calling the kid a zebra because he was half white, half black. And I'm like, and for 1 second I laughed. I was like, ha ha ha. But then I'm like, fuck, as if they're still playing this on TV. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But you're right. No one's sacked. Like this, they're not crucifying this character.
You know, they don't.
Or the writers, or that's because
forget about the writers. Let's talk about the television stations who played it, who put the money behind this, who pushed this, the big business. You know what I mean? They generalized it and made it marginalized to the point where it's normal. You get what I'm saying?
Sean, I want your opinion on this. What about South Park? How the fuck can they get away without that shit?
Because it's a cartoon, it's probably a lot easier.
But that's there's an idea behind it. There's a writer. There's the guy's drawing it. There's a network that puts it on. And this shit, the stuff that I'm watching, I'm like, oh my god. But if there was humans acting it out or saying it, it would be over.
Yep.
But now that it's a cartoon, it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, The Simpsons. I had this conversation with somebody recently. The Simpsons. There was a big outcry by a comedian, Harry Kondabolu, because he was upset at Apu, who's the Indian character who runs the convenience store, and he's like, it's really offensive to him. And listen, I don't have that knowledge, or it's hard for me to understand that.
Right.
I don't have everybody walking up to me saying, why aren't you working at 7-Eleven? And I used to work with an Indian woman, and people would make comments about Indian 7-Eleven, and she would say, no, Pakistanis work in 7-Eleven. Indians are doctors and engineers. And I realized that was sort of maybe religious bigotry, that she was like, Hindus go to grad school and Muslims, work these kind of jobs. But the thing is, if you watch The Simpsons, Apu is actually one of the very few nice people on the show.
That's true. Yeah.
He runs his own business. He's happy. Yeah. He's got 1 million kids, because I think they had 8 or 9 kids.
Yeah. He's living the American dream, technically.
Right. And he's a loving father and helpful father and husband. And he's like the only one of the very few normal people on the show. The people who should be complaining are like, cops should be complaining because the police chief is a moron.
And he looks like a pig character.
Yeah, and looks like a pig. And the mayor sounds like a Kennedy, and he's Irish and he's corrupt.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true.
I tell you, but like it's dead, they're portraying the people. But anyways, we got off topic. We got off the topic.
It was fun.
Thanks, Eric. I haven't left yet. You just tell me to come back.
Now, how do you keep busy during COVID?
I've been rehearsing, which is like an hour and a half a day. I'm one of the rare people who's actually working out almost every day. Everybody else is like, I'm lying around doing nothing and getting fatter. I'm working out and getting fatter. So I've been cooking a lot more. I have more time to bake things. I made pizza last night. So I've been keeping busy with that. I've been reading a little bit, and I've been watching way fucking too much television.
I know. I'm rewatching shit now. That's how bad things have gotten over here. So, but give me your top 5 comedians.
Top 5 comedians. Am I allowed to put myself in there?
Yep.
Why not?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. Eric. Oh, I'm sorry. He wrote, "Thank you, come again." I didn't hear the accent. I didn't realize it was Apu. That's right. And I can't do an Indian accent, and if I could, I probably wouldn't anyway. Good point. Sorry about that.
No matter who I'm trying to make fun of. Yeah. So your top 5.
I can name a lot of very funny people that you've never heard of.
That's true.
So that's what I'm going to do. So
Why
I would
not do it. Yeah.
Let me think about this for a second. And I hope none of them are watching, because the other 50 are going to be pissed off.
Always.
All right. Laurie Kilmartin, who writes for Conan. Joe DeVito. Al Lubell, who's an American but lives in London now. And UK, we want him back. So that's 3. Let me think of who else. Dan Natterman, who's a friend of mine, very funny. He's been on Letterman 4 times. And I'm going to leave the 5th open so that if anybody gives me shit, I can say, "Oh, you were going to be the 5th."
I love it.
Nice.
That's the way to do it. Be like, no, it was you that I was going to mention for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, we play a little game called Versus here. You down to play with us?
I'm probably going to embarrass myself.
Not at all. Super simple. Let's do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
We keep it simple here on Versus, man. There's no winners, there's no losers. It's your opinion, and you tell us why.
I probably already lost.
The first one would be Chris Rock versus Eddie Murphy.
As comedians or fighting?
Nope. Comedians. We're doing.
I want fighting.
It's been a long time since I've seen Eddie Murphy. I would say probably Chris Rock.
see his new movie Coming to America too?
I have not seen it yet. Not good?
Nope.
No. Well, I'll probably still end up seeing it eventually.
You don't have to because there's fuck all on TV or anything, so check it out. But it was a super letdown. You watched it, Bam?
I watched it.
You found it funny?
Some things, but you know, I don't want to criticize my people too much. You know what I mean? I want to keep my card. I want to keep my Negro card. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I thought you meant Americans.
Oh no! I'm always representing New York, baby, everywhere we go. You know what I mean?
All
Doesn't
right.
matter. Now, the whole U.S. as a whole. You know, when Trump got elected, I was in Cuba. You know what I'm saying?
This is true.
You know,
You're
but
right.
New York don't matter where I go. Represent New York. You know what I mean? The whole state right
Eddie
there.
Murphy's from New York. Chris Rock.
Sean, do you know where Bam's living right
Rock's
now?
from New York too.
Bam, where do you live right now?
Who? I live in Canada. I'm in Nova Scotia right now.
You didn't know that?
He's from Nova Scotia.
Where do you
I'm
live?
not-
Me, I'm in Ottawa, Canada, the capital.
I knew it was a capital. That much Canadian geography I know.
I don't know, man. I went over the border one time, and I was just over the border. I thought they would know a little bit more about us, and yeah, I was like, damn. It's like, didn't know anything about Canada Day. Didn't know where I was from, and I was like, but I'm just an hour and a half away from you. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. Next one, same thing. Could be movie, stand up, whatever. The next one would be Jim Carrey versus Mike Myers.
I don't know. Jim Carrey maybe, but neither one would be on the top of my list. So.
No. I can see that. Now this one for me is a bit different. It was more of an old generation versus a new generation. The next one will be, we got Russell Peters versus Richard Pryor.
I thought you were going to give me Schwarzenegger versus
No,
Stallone.
we're giving you.
I saw them in the credits.
Yeah. We're hey man, you're an expert at comedy. We want to know your opinion because I love when I bring this up because someone else would be like, I have my own thought, and then they'll sell me on their own pitch on why it's someone else.
That was Russell Peters versus Richard Pryor.
Yes.
Everybody says that the two greatest comedians were Richard Pryor and me. Richard Pryor and George Carlin.
Yes.
I don't know if I agree necessarily with that. They certainly both were groundbreaking and made a difference in the world of comedy. So I'm going to have to give this to Richard Pryor. And you know what? I don't know Russell Peters, but if he thinks he's more important to comedy than Richard Pryor, then he's
probably great. But you're right. There is a difference between groundbreaking and being great too, because I find that happens in every era of sports. You know what I mean? There's guys that just break through. But then I find we won't let go. It's even in the NBA, it's is Michael Jordan the best player? We all say yes because we're older. But could it be really LeBron James? And there's the argument. So,
But you look at it like Mark Spitz was a phenomenal swimmer and was the first person to win 7 gold medals in the Olympics.
Yes.
And college kids can beat his time now.
That's funny. That's true. That is true. All right, got another one here. Robin Williams versus our buddy.
Oh man, really?
Come on. No.
Before you answer, let me
go right ahead.
I honestly liked Robin Williams more than I liked Bill Cosby stuff. That was me.
I don't.
From growing up. I always found Robin he was just a little fucked up in the head. You know what I mean? With the way he acted and moved, and you know what I mean. Where I felt Bill was more just
more cerebral. His jokes were not just.
I don't know, man. I've never been a humongous Robin Williams fan. I just don't get me wrong. He's funny. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, his quirkiness that you're talking about, I wasn't drawn to that. That's just me.
Omitting all of the history of all the terrible things that Robin Williams did in his life. Actually, he had a reputation among comedians as stealing material. So to the point where if he hopped into a comedy club to try out material, the comedians on stage would stop doing the material and just chat with the audience. And I don't know if he did it deliberately or just he'd forget he heard something and think he wrote. That's a nightmare of comedians is we think of something really funny and we worry it came to us too effortlessly. Did I hear that somewhere or did I think of it on my own? And I can give you an example of that. About 5 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I had this vivid dream about this beautiful female comedian. Now, not a particular comedian. It was fictional, right? It was a comedian I made up. But absolutely beautiful and telling this hilarious joke. And I woke up and I thought, because I was still half asleep, I've got to find out who she is. She's amazing. I want to meet her. And then my next thought was, oh, that was just a dream. You made her up in your sleep. Yeah. And then the next thought I had was, well, if I made her up in my sleep, then the joke she was telling, I also wrote in my sleep. But I had this fear that this was somebody else's joke, and that's why I had a dream about it. So before I did the joke on stage, like in a comedy club, for 6 months, I would only tell it at open mic nights where it was just other comics, expecting somebody else to come up to me and say, you know, that's somebody else's joke. And then be like, oops, sorry, I didn't know. And I'd stop. Never happened. And so, so that was to talk about, you know,
I like it's
that's material.
Now, has it ever?
So the answer to the question is Cosby.
Now, has it ever happened where jokes weren't stolen, but they're kind of similar? Because there's got to be things that, like, you know, I thought about and you're saying it a bit different.
We call it parallel development. And this happens a lot on late night TV where you have the same set of facts. You know, the president says something and 2 or 3 late night hosts, you know, they each got a dozen writers, come up with the same thing. And there was one night where this is like 20 years ago, there were only 3 late night hosts at the time. There was Conan, there was Leno, and there was Letterman.
That's right.
And they all had the same joke. It was when Dan Quayle put out a statement saying he was ruling out running for president in 1996. All 3 of them said he hasn't ruled out running in 1997. So all of them came up with the same obvious joke. So it happens from time to time that comedians, and that's why they teach comics, make your jokes about you, because if they're personal about things that happen to you, nobody else has your life experience.
I like that.
But if your jokes are all just about, you know, I was in a donut shop and a cop walked in and this happened, you know, 50 people have thought of that.
All right, we got one more verses here. We got some of the other, they're a little bit newer guys. We got Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura.
You know, I'm not that familiar with either of them, but I just heard part of a podcast with Bert talking about the monster. I don't know if you're familiar with that joke.
No.
It's a story where he goes to Russia. And he doesn't speak.
The machine.
Sorry, not monster, machine.
The machine, yes.
Machine. And I just heard that. He's talking about it on a podcast, and I'd never heard it before. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a great story. And then he's talking about how he can't do it. He didn't want to do it in a comedy club because he said it was 13 minutes long. And that's too long a story. Yeah. But he proves if story can hold somebody's attention, it doesn't matter if it's.
Have you ever heard this machine story?
No.
Dude, I'll send you a clip. He literally, Sean's 100%. He did not want to say. It is literally to the point where people are not leaving until this story is said. That's how legendary.
Which is a problem when you're a comic, and like Robert Klein, who's, you know, I won't say my generation because he's, you know, 100 years older than I am, but he had a joke about jazz musicians and I can't stop my leg, and you know because he's on it. I'm not trying to do Robert Klein's joke, but he's standing on stage and his leg is jumping up and down like jazz musicians would do, playing a harmonica, and then he's joking about the leg. Yeah. And people now want to hear that when they go see him. Like, well, you already know the joke.
I don't know. It's true. We know the story, but the guy has to come out and say it. Yeah. They have a podcast called 2 Bears, 1 Cave. It's pretty funny. Tom Segura, I'm going to send you a link, Sean, after this. He was playing basketball, and he goes for a dunk, and he literally slips and breaks his leg and tears his knee. You have to. It is like to the point you hear the noise, you hear them all laughing, and then they're like, "Are you okay?" And his arm's bent a certain way, but you see it in slow motion, and his knee was bent another. Oh my god!
Ooh. So this is video of him actually injuring himself.
Yes, but it was like, oh, go try and pull a dunk. So he goes and grabs the ball and he runs, and he's about to jump, and he just slips, and you can hear the thump, just the bump. And you're like, oh my god! And it was
Why was this being videotaped?
Because it was a they were doing a little clip, a basketball clip, so they can play it on their podcast. Because let's be realistic, these 2 fat guys are not going to ever dunk a day in their lives, right? So it was trying to become like a bit of a joke, but it just ended up being a fucking complete disaster. Ooh. And then Bert ends up going on a show, 2 Bears, 1 Cave, with Tom's wife, and talking about like how miserable he was, and it was funny in the hospital, and now he can't wipe himself and all that other stuff. But it was fucking crazy though.
Wow.
All right, we got another question from E-Rock here. Closer to the audience, final impressions. Impressions of what? You close? There's an audience final question of you. Do you have a favorite closer or one of the written as?
That's a good. Yeah,
That is a good question.
They say to open with your second strongest joke and close with your strongest joke. But my strongest joke is about 3 minutes long, and I don't want to. I'm trying to think of. Okay, here's a joke. It's maybe a minute long that I used to close with.
Yeah.
I talk about having, before I was a comedian, I had a day job in Midtown Manhattan. And one Friday before work, I dropped my car off at the dealership for an oil change. And when I walked in after work to pick up my car, I heard the service manager whisper to one of his mechanics, "There's that crazy guy I was telling you about. He's brought his car in 4 Fridays in a row for an oil change. And he only drives 150 miles a week. What kind of moron pays for an oil change every 150 miles? And I walked up to the counter and I said, "Listen, I dropped my car off here at 8 a.m. because you told me you would change the oil for $19.95. Now, the parking lot next door."
I know.
Yeah.
Early bird special.
It charges $35 just for parking. So I got one question for you. Which one of us is the moron? And it turns out it was me for opening my mouth, because when I went back the next week, an oil change was $40. So that's what I used to close on.
That's awesome. All right, Shaun, we usually go around, we ask 10 quick random questions to get people to know you a little better. So the first question would be, what was your favorite stand-up that you ever watched?
Favorite stand-up? Oh, that's not so quick. I don't know.
Is there a special, or is there one that
Growing up,
stands out?
7 Dirty Words was the George Carlin's 7 Dirty Words was what everybody talked about.
That dude's, I know, he's genius. Yeah, absolutely.
First job ever.
First job ever was helping Mark Frusciante with his paper route, and then when he gave up the route, I got the paper route.
Nice. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Growing up, I guess Animal House or Dog Day Afternoon. And if I want to be an adult, because Dog Day Afternoon was about a bank robbery, and I was like 10 and realized I was rooting for the bank robber. It made me realize, because the bank robber was sort of the good guy in the movie.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how powerful film can be, because you can make people think, oh, the guy robbing the bank, I want him to win. But also Casablanca, Maltese Falcon. There's a whole bunch of great
Nice.
Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show of all time?
Yours. Yeah.
Oh, wow. God, I'd love to say 60 Minutes. Here's the thing. The TV show I least liked was Married with Children, because it was just so stupid. But later on, I realized it was actually a breakthrough in TV, because it was literally the first truly unhappy family on television.
You know what? That's true. Yeah, Bam loves that one.
But favorite TV show, I used to love The Simpsons. I think after about 25 seasons, they sort of ran out of ideas.
Yeah.
But to go 25 seasons with
incredible.
Such great TV.
So, Shaun, name me one thing that's on your bucket list. One thing you have to still do.
I want to host a late night talk show, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Keep working at it, man. We got to keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I like things to be efficient, and I know that's too big an area, but it just bugs me when things are run stupidly. Like, why don't they do it this way? People say, Shaun, you complain, but I only really talk negatively about things that I can fix or that somebody could fix. So
I get that. That's me every day at work.
Yeah.
Every fucking day at work. So besides comedy, what other hobbies do you have?
I like cooking. I like drinking wine. I actually have 4 barbecue grills out back, and I sometimes throw. Well, it didn't start out that I wanted 4. I only paid for 2 of them.
Okay, that's good.
But and then my brother gave me one, and my neighbor gave me one. But sometimes if I have 25 people over, you need that much grill space, because one of the things I grill is corn on the cob. And corn on the cob takes up a lot of room.
That's right.
So, and you can't even fill the whole grill with corn on the cob, because it just brings the temperature down so much. I soak them in water first, so I have to space them out. So that's like 2 grills right there. So I do like cooking.
What's the biggest lessons you've learned so far in the business?
This is, I think, the most important lesson, and I learned this early: don't be an asshole. Because comedians, everybody, when they start out, we think we're funny, and we think we're way funnier than we are. And I say to people, You have to get better to realize how good you're not.
Mm.
Because you look back at last year and say, I thought I was funny then, and I wasn't, but now I'm funny. And then the next year you'd be looking back at this year thinking the same thing.
That's a good call.
So most comics get their breaks from other comics, and if you're an asshole, you shut down that avenue of getting exposure.
There you go.
I get that. So now, yes or no to this COVID vaccination?
I already got one.
You already got it?
Yeah, I got the first.
Can you let people know? Are you feeling all right so they don't?
First of all, it's a tiny needle, so if you're afraid of needles, I felt more sensation with her rubbing the alcohol on my arm than the needle, and I had zero side effects that night. Maybe I was a little tired, but I couldn't attribute that to the vaccine.
Now, how long ago was it your first vaccination?
Week and a half.
See, Bam, your wife got both.
She's got both. You know,
she's still alive?
She's fine. Yeah, she's still alive.
Bam's been given his own vaccination.
You know, I we got into a little splat. We got into a little splat the other day, and I think it's contributed from the vaccine. You know, because she got a second shot, so she started shooting shots at me. You know, you motherfucker, I hate you. Blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe
That's not
not.
Vaccination, bro.
Were you cheating on her at the time?
No. I was just being a dick. You know, no normal routine shit. You know. So, what advice can you give the inspiring stand-up comics that's coming up?
Upcoming.
Well, everybody.
What's wrong with us?
Everybody gives the same advice, and it's right. It's basically stage time. You get better by going on stage. Yes. But I will say this: work on your weaknesses, not your strengths. So. When I started out in comedy, I was a good writer and a bad performer. Mm-hmm. And I spent more time writing and less time performing because I was good at it and I liked it. Mm-hmm. What I really needed to do was work on getting on stage more. And I was on the rowing team in college. And as training for rowing, we would run or lift weights every day before practice. And the guys who were strong and good weightlifters spent more time in the gym lifting. And the guys who were good runners, spent more time running. And it should have been the other way around. You got to work on what you're not good at.
I get that.
Got it.
I get that. So hopefully you're getting your second vaccination sometime soon. Hopefully COVID comes to an end. What's next for you?
I really think that this country is just going to turn into one giant orgy when everybody's vaccinated.
It's actually kind of true.
Well, I haven't had a date in over a year, so I think everybody's just going to be. I just need to touch another human being.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how the COVID situation, is it eased up? Because I remember here at first, when I went to a supermarket, and this was before the mask was mandatory. You know, there was some yelling at each other. How was it over there for you?
I have no fucking idea because I haven't been anywhere in a year.
Good for you.
I live in a place where I can get groceries delivered or do curbside pickup, and so that's easy. And I go see my brother and his family because they're isolated and don't see anybody with me. So that's a bubble of life.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
But I mean, in New York, people are pretty good in most places. Actually, I have a friend who lives in Brooklyn, and she said where she lives in Brooklyn, there's a lot of jerks who won't wear masks. But people in Manhattan say people are wearing masks in Manhattan.
Well, we know people from Florida, and they're
nuts.
They're buck wild over there doing their own thing. And I read on the sports channel that the UFC is going to be hosting a full capacity event. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Well,
man?
Some of them are going to get COVID, especially because now. I used to give blood a lot because I have blood that's in demand for premature babies. So last year I gave blood 5 times, but then this year when the newer strains came out that are more contagious, I said I'm not ready to go into the blood center. That's one reason why I did everything I could to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Because I want to resume donating blood because there's a big shortage. But to pack people into an arena like that now it's just crazy.
Yeah, I had to reread it. It was like, what? You know what I mean? It was like, full capacity.
And nobody will be wearing masks, I'm sure.
No one will care. Everyone will be drunk, yelling and spitting on each other. Just the way it is. So how can people find you?
My website is brainchampagne.com. Mm-hmm. And the reason I did that is because when I started in comedy, people would get their name as their URL, and it was $50 a year for a URL back then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody's going to spell Shaun right, so you got 3 spellings of Shaun, and people would spell Eli wrong. And there's 6 combinations. I'm not spending $300 a year for a URL. Mm-hmm. So I wanted something memorable, and brain champagne rhymes. I think of stand-up as sort of bubbles for your brain, and people remember it. And the reason to go to my website is not just for comedy videos, but there's 50,000 words worth of jokes on my website, which is more than half a novel's worth of content.
Yeah, you were saying that's crazy, man. That's great.
So there's a lot.
I just posted it. I just posted your website on all the on the comments and stuff to get you checked out. So now, Shaun, how's it? Let's say if me and Bam, vaccinations here, we wanted to hire you. How do we go about it? We go through your website.
Go to my website.
I love it.
I mean, you could find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, but my website makes it easy to contact me. And the only thing about doing a show for the two of you is you're gonna have to be in the same damn city. So one of you got to promote.
It'll be fine. We'll be in the same city, and don't worry, I'll send my brothers to come snatch you up. You know? So if you see 4 black guys run up on you, say get in the car, bam something, you'll be all right. Don't worry.
It's fine because it's probably a nicer car than I have.
Yeah, actually, you probably would because you know he's got a 740, you know, BMW, you know.
All right.
He got a nicer car than I do. Fuck.
I love it, bro. Shaun, thank you for taking your time, man, for shooting the shit with us.
For real, we appreciate you, brother.
We're gonna be following you, man. You made us fans. We appreciate. But anytime you want to come back on and promote something, let us know, brother.
All right, because Eric and Apu want me back.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do it up. Have a good night.
All right,
bye bye.
Later.
See you.